May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 5 minutes. Su atención, por favor. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 5 minutos. May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 5 minutes. Su atención, por favor. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 5 minutos. May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 5 minutes. Su atención, por favor. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 5 minutos. May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 2 minutes. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 2 minutos. May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 2 minutes. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 2 minutos. May I have your attention, please? ALTA's Airline Leaders Forum General Session will begin in 2 minutes. La sesión general del ALTA Foro Líderes de Aerolíneas comenzará en 2 minutos.
Are initiating our general session. Please take your seats. Thank you.
buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos nuevamente al ALTA AGM and Airline Leaders Forum. Antes de iniciar nuestra segunda jornada académica, les queremos compartir algunos anuncios. Les recordamos que tenemos disponible traducción simultánea inglés-español. Los auriculares de traducción se encuentran disponibles en la entrada del salón. Simultaneous translation is available for both English and Spanish. The devices are at the entrance of the room. Y si aún no han descargado la aplicación del evento, los invitamos a hacerlo, disponible tanto para Android como para iOS, y ahí encontrarán toda la información relacionada a la conferencia, lista de participantes, patrocinadores, agenda actualizada y más. También les recordamos que tenemos el área de exhibición, donde se llevarán a cabo los coffee breaks y el almuerzo del día de hoy. Los invitamos a compartir su experiencia en este vuelo utilizando el hashtag ALTAForum, al usar sus publicaciones en redes sociales y, por supuesto, seguir a ALTA en Instagram, LinkedIn y en X. La participación de cada uno de ustedes en este evento enriquecerá las discusiones, así que los invitamos a participar. Este evento es para ustedes. Y ahora continuamos nuestra agenda académica. Invitamos para el siguiente panel a Michael Lindenberg, gerente general de Deutsche Bank, como moderador, y lo acompañan Nicole Monteiro de Castro, editora gerente, America's Biofuels and Sugar, SAP Global Commodity Insights. Ricardo Rixigel, Commercial Director de B8 Energy. Brigadier General Leonardo Blenghini, Director Nacional de DINASI Uruguay y Presidente de la Comisión Latinoamericana de Aviación Civil. Ellos profundizarán sobre la disponibilidad de materias primas de biomasa y residuos en América Latina y Caribe, además de nuevas vías para optimizar la producción de SAF, el estado actual de la senda de descarbonización y el conjunto de medidas para alcanzar los objetivos de 2050. Bienvenidos.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everybody had a good night, a lot of rest, a lot of excitement last night. Well, I want to start out by thanking Jose Ricardo and the ALTA team, who puts on such a great event every year. You know, when Jose Ricardo asked me to host this panel, one of the things I didn't share with him was that I am truly a tree hugger. I don't know how that translates into Spanish or Portuguese, but I love trees. I mean, I'm very, very green. And to keep the green theme going, if you look at the three gentlemen here, not only are we wearing ties, but they're all green. So, and that is the focus of today's panel, which is to discuss the path to sustainability and the role of sustainable aviation fuel in Latin America and the Caribbean region. Now, for those of you who were here yesterday, we actually heard a bit about sustainable aviation fuel, or what we refer to as SAF. And so during the airline panels, it actually featured fairly prominently in the conversation. Also, for those of you who were able to listen to the fireside chat with Willie Walsh, the head of IATA, he spent a lot of time talking about SAF and the challenges ahead. And as many of you in this room know, this is a very serious topic for the global airline industry, and one that we believe has real existential implications for airline travel. So just a little bit of quick background. Today, the global airline industry produces about 2% of global emissions. And what we learned yesterday from the economics panel is that if you look at the direct and indirect and induced benefits of global air travel, it contributes about 4% to global GDP. So if we think about the airline industry, it's actually doing a pretty good job, 2% of emissions, but double that of GDP. But here's the problem. If emissions are currently unchecked and nothing is done about it, and you look at the growth of the industry over the next 30 years out to 2050, the airline industry will at that point contribute 22% of global emissions. So clearly something has to be done. So look, we're at a crossroads, you know, or as one airline CEO recently said it fairly succinctly, travelers should not have to choose between seeing the world and saving the world. So over the next 45, 50 minutes, we're going to spend time, I have an esteemed panel here, to talk about decarbonization and the industry's path to net zero by 2050. So up here, our first slide. Oh, one other point that I want to make before we actually jump to the first slide is that we did hear that SAF will account for about 65% of the industry's carbon abatement by 2050. So the question is, okay, SAF is very important. It's a critical part of the equation, but it's only, at least at this point, the estimates are that it will help offset 65%. So what's going to offset the other 35%? And this is important. As of now, the thinking is that 13 percentage points of that 35% are going to come from new technology aircraft, such as those that may be run on hydrogen or battery electric. There's another 11 points coming from carbon capture technologies. And then 8 points will come from carbon offsets, which remains, the last 3 points are going to come from a more efficient operation, such as advances in air traffic control. So what I would like to start out is to give you some context about the challenges that the industry faces with respect to SAF production. And so to put some context around that, I want to turn it over to Nicole, who will address this first slide here and give us a sense of where we are and where we need to go.
Gracias, Mike. So, first of all, buenos dias, mucho gusto estar acá. Me llamo Nicole, perdón, no hablo español, estoy tentando mi mejor, but so far it has been like a mix of Portuguese, English, Spanish, but I'm promised that for the next event, if I come, I will have a much better Spanish, fingers crossed for it. So thank you so much for the invite. It has been a pleasure to be here. I need to say that most of times whenever I'm attending a new event, that's my first time attending an ALTA event, I have the strongly perspective that I'm learning much more than sharing. And that's the main characteristics of that kind of event, learn more and share and have new connections. So thank you so much for the invite. It has been a pleasure to be here, and I hope to contribute at least a little bit with that interesting subject that is decarbonize. There are some initial considerations that I'd like to raise here. The first one is about why are we discussing it all? And I heard yesterday that just with some minor changes in the airline system in EU, in the taxing and the whole infrastructure that there is nowadays in the European region, it would be possible to reduce emissions by 10%. That's something for us to keep in mind, because we are all now here, at least in this panel, discussing some possible pathways to reduce emissions from a specific sector. And as you said, Mike, it's a sector that has been contributing to the GDP, to the global GDP. So it's not just about the tourism, as I heard yesterday as well. And it's something that made me think about it. So whenever we start to think about airline companies, the first thing that comes to our minds, being really like generic thinking, is tourism. But we are all now here. I'm coming from São Paulo, you are coming from US, Leonardo is coming from Uruguay, and I believe that there are many other locations coming over here, and we are here to discuss the future of the energy environment. The future of not just about a specific sector, not just about airline sector. We are here discussing the future of the society. Because the reason why we are trying to decarbonize is because we are trying to save the planet to the next generations. So there are many different ways to do so. Through technologies, as you said, absolutely with biofuels, absolutely with policymakers and the regulatory environment thinking about different alternative ways to decarbonize, but having in mind that any change that we apply here will impact in costs, will impact in the lifestyle, and the main point that we are trying to solve is let's save our planet. It's a beautiful story behind something so technical, but that's the point. So we need to do our best to find a specific pathway to absolutely achieve our emissions target, but through the most efficient way. And efficient here is about society, is about energy content, and it's about supply.
So when we look at this slide here and we look at the time frame from 2023 through 2050, and we look at the potential increase in SAF production, there's some pretty sizable estimates out there about what it's going to cost the industry, or should I say what it's going to cost the world. What is the cost of getting to carbon neutrality by 2050? And when by the time we get to 2050, that's 449 billion liters of production to get to that 65% abatement. From today, we're looking at just a few 100,000 liters. And so according to consultants McKinsey, to get to that, it's going to cost $5 trillion. And I want to repeat that number, $5 trillion. That's actually what the revenue forecast for the global airline industry is expected to be over the next 5 to 6 years in aggregate. That's revenue. That's not profits. That's 1/5 of the size of the US economy today. That's 1/4 of the Eurozone's economy. So we're talking about some big numbers here. Very clear that the industry can't do it on its own. So the next question I want to ask is, how are Latin American countries working to develop policies that encourage SAF production? And so, Brigadier General Blengini, I want to pose that question to you, which I believe you have some unique insight among our panelists, given that you were also a representative for Uruguay at ICAO, which most in the room here know that ICAO is the arm of the UN focused on aviation matters, and it was also instrumental in creating the framework to get to carbon neutrality by 2050. So again, to repeat that question, how are Latin American countries working to develop policies that encourage SAF production?
Okay, first, I'd like to say good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mexico government, to be here, and also Ricardo Botello, to give us the opportunity to bring with all of you this opinion and knowledge. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Nicole, Ricardo. And secondly, I'd like to say congratulations for all the Brazilian aviation community, because I forgot yesterday. Yesterday was a very important day in Brazil for the whole aviation community, because the 23rd of October every year is the anniversary for the Santos Dumont. This year is 150 years for this bird, 150 years for the father of the aviation. Someone say otherwise, but for Latin American, it's very important to say Santos Dumont, okay, I know, Kitty Hawk is very important, I know. But for us, Latin American, it's very important Santos Dumont. And also yesterday was 150 years for his birth. And then congratulate all Brazilian aviation community. Second, okay, for your question, I'd like to say answer by, I'd like to explain my answer in Spanish because it's better for me to explain better. Bien, Latinoamérica, primero que nada, en mi rol de presidente de la Comisión Latinoamericana de Aviación Civil, tiene la responsabilidad de representar y ser voz de 22 países de América Latina y el Caribe. Por lo tanto, y en primer orden, nosotros respetamos la soberanía que cada país tiene para tomar sus decisiones, por más que nosotros tratamos de focalizar y generar ámbitos de negociación, de acuerdo, generar acuerdos y algún tipo de marco que todos los demás países puedan acogerse, respetando la soberanía de los mismos. Diciendo esto, el pasado mes de marzo del año 2022, en Montevideo, reunida la Comisión Latinoamericana, se llegó a un documento para incentivar a todos los países miembros para que se trabaje en pro de la producción de combustibles sostenibles de aviación. Este documento marco puede ser o no tomado por los países, pero es importante que a nivel de la Comisión se generen documentos que den comienzo a el tomar conciencia de que hay que hacer algo. Para continuar ese documento, se trata de instar a los gobiernos de que generen políticas alineadas con ese macro objetivo de OASI, que es la descarbonización al 2050. ¿Cómo nosotros entendemos que podemos llegar a alinear con ese objetivo? Primero que nada es generar una normativa con políticas claras, transparentes, donde le den confianza al inversor y al operador que el gobierno está trabajando en una forma coherente, lógica, prolija, que le dé confianza al sistema. Segundo, generar instancias de que la tecnología le llegue a todos. Acá es un punto que después quizás lo amplíe. El concepto de que América es un continente con una particularidad que difiere de lo que nosotros podemos ver en Europa, de lo que podemos ver en África o en otros territorios. Difiere por algo que ayer lo escuchaba Ricardo, que somos un continente con montañas, con una selva, o hoy de mañana que escuchaba a nuestros colegas del Caribe, en el cual la particularidad del Caribe de tener un mar que los rodea y la conectividad aérea es fundamental. Nos hace particulares, nos hace con una coyuntura diferente. Por lo tanto, la tecnología debe arribar a nosotros para que nosotros podamos desarrollar con nuestras particularidades, darle la posibilidad a desarrollar estrategias particulares. No siempre la estrategia que le sirve a un sector, a un país o a una región le es idénticamente aplicable en otro sector. Porque nuestro público, ayer también lo comentaban los CEO de las compañías, tanto de la low cost como de las otras compañías de mayor porte. Nuestro público objetivo, tiene un PIB per cápita inferior de que en otras regiones. Son particularidades diferentes. Por ende, tenemos que trabajar en forma diferente. El objetivo es común, 2050 descarbonización. Tercer punto y atado a la tecnología, capacitación para lograr sostener todo este cambio. ¿En qué áreas? La capacitación, por más que estamos en un ámbito aeronáutico, tiene que ir atada con la capacitación de nuestro sector productivo. ¿Sobre qué materia prima va a estar sostenido el SAF? ¿Qué capacitación le debemos dar a nuestras poblaciones para que sean el motor de la producción? Una simple brincadera, una simple broma. Para quienes les gusta el fútbol, y Uruguay saben que le gusta el fútbol, Brasil le gusta el fútbol y México le gusta el fútbol. 2030 va a ser el Mundial de Fútbol con una múltiple participación de escenarios, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, en América, y en Europa va a estar España, Portugal y Marruecos, en África. O sea, va a ser un mundial muy importante. Ahora bien, 2030, no va a estar Neymar, no va a estar Messi y no va a estar Suárez. Las generaciones nuevas que van a enfrentar el Mundial 2030 nacieron hace poco y están educándose y formándose. Las generaciones que hagan el cambio del 2050 quizás no nacieron. Santos Dumont nació hace 150 años y nos generó el cambio hace 100 años. Tenemos que pensar que la educación, la tecnología, tienen que ser parte de las políticas públicas en nuestros estados. Y como autoridad, ahora hablando un poco como Uruguay, tenemos que ser los garantes, quienes garanticen que eso se haga como tiene que ser. Perdón si me explayé un poco más, Michael.
No, that was great. Thank you for that very comprehensive response. And so the question now is, what are some of the early results? You know, what are we actually, you know, what are the initiatives, what are the actions actually that are being taken? And so, just to give us an update on the construction of the first biorefinery complex in the Southern Hemisphere, I want to turn the floor over to Ricardo to talk about Omega Green. There's a lot of exciting stuff on this slide, and if you can even spend a few seconds or so talking about HEFA technology, which I know many in this audience, it's probably a new concept for them.
So, primero, gracias por la invitación, Ricardo. Para mí es un placer tener la oportunidad de compartir con usted un poco más de nuestro proyecto acá. También de decir que me encanta ver tantas personas juntas trabajando para justamente tener una condición mejor para las compañías, obviamente para todo el mercado, y cómo eso ayudará a todo el mundo, como nosotros hablamos acá, no solo porque hay un interés en turismo, pero también la importancia que toda aviación tenéis. Ayer nosotros hablamos acá en una situación muy compleja de que nosotros vivimos en regiones que la aviación es importante para resgatar personas que están en una situación un tanto complicada. Dicho hecho, yo cambiaré para inglés porque mi español no es tan bueno así. So, thank you, Mike, Nicole, and Leonardo for sharing this panel. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about Omega Green. But before to talk about Omega Green, I would like to invite you all to think a little bit more. We really know that SAF is not the solution, but it's part of a huge solution that we need to provide. We are working hard to produce this kind of fuel, to give you the solution to reduce your emissions, because we believe that this market is increased a lot. And as Michael said, it's just 63% of the emissions that SAF could contribute. But at the same time, the market will increase a lot, and emissions is going up and up. And if you, the most important guys in the aviation market, are working here, and if you are not seeing part of this, who will see this solution? So we cannot pass to another the responsibility that we have to reduce emissions. I know it's just 2%, it's not so big, but it's too important. When you see, I'm from south of Brazil, and we are seeing a really bad situation, raining a lot, the flood, yes, the situation is really not good there. And we know part of this, we are fault. So we are, I would say, guilty. And because of that, we are here working to give you, the airlines company, part of the solution. And we need you to achieve this goal. Because unfortunately, sometimes we see that it's challenged because who comes from first? The demand or the production? We see a lot of panels discuss the production. There is a lack between the demand and the production. And we are trying to do our part to offer you part of the solution in Omega Green Project. Omega Green Project is the largest biorefinery that we are producing. Actually, it's a project that we are building in South America. Actually, it's located in Paraguay, Vegeta. It's a country in between Brazil and Uruguay. It's a really important region. And why we really believe in this project? First, because in that region we have availability of feedstock. We saw some projects, even in USA or in Europe, that they have money, they have the technology, but they have no feedstock available. In the next slide, I will pass a little bit more about this. And as Michael asked me to talk a little bit about HEFA, we know that we have some of pathways approved to produce SAF, and HEFA is one of them. What means HEFA? Hydroprocessed yeast ester and fats. This is the concept. So the easy concept that we already are producing considering this pathway. We really believe that HEFA, it's not the solution, it's part of the solution. We have hydrogen, we have electricity, we have A to J, we have another solutions to deliver you SAF. But this is one that we are working hard. And in this project, we are considering to use the most important technology, I would say, this UOP technology. They already have some plants in Europe and now in the United States. It's a huge biorefinery. We are talking here about to produce 20,000 barrels a day. It will produce around 800,000 tons of SAF per year. It's a huge amount. The investment that we are doing in Paraguay, it's around 1.6 billion US dollars. Just to give you an idea, is the biggest private investment in Paraguay history. So it's a huge project that we have there. And one of the challenges that we have to produce this is to have the support on the government staff, on the financial terms, and also the demand. We really need the demand to support our project. And because of that, we are since 2021, if I'm not wrong, Ricardo, as a member, ALTA member, to help ALTA showing a little bit more about that we can provide you part of the solution. So this is a little bit about the Omega Green project.
Great, thanks, Ricardo. When I look at your slide and I see sort of in the edge over there, we talk about that this project will enable the generation of high carbon credits. And one thing that we have noticed in the development of SAF, is that some regions, such as the EU, are taking a mandate approach, and some, such as the US, are taking an incentive approach. And it was very interesting just to hear Willie talk about that yesterday again. His view that he believes some of these policies around SAF production are that they're making mistakes, and that the rest of the world should maybe learn from some of those mistakes, as well as the fact is that what may work for Europe, that model should not be superimposed over every other region, especially parts of the world where the aviation industry isn't as developed as, say, as in Europe or in the US. And I think we can all agree that when we think about where a lot of the pollution has come from, it's not from the aviation industry in South America. It's the aviation industry in Europe, the US, other developed markets. And so there's this whole question about fairness and sharing the burden. I want to jump over to one of Nicole's slides to talk about incentives and maybe the approach of the US.
Of course. Thanks, Mike. After hearing my colleagues here, there are a few things that are relevant to be mentioned and connects exactly with you just raised it here. Different place, different problems, different approach to the solution.
Yeah.
So we cannot put everyone inside the same basket and say that you're gonna go through the same pathway to solve the emissions problem. So in Latin America, we have some specificities that we don't have in EU and we don't have in US. In US, we have a lot of subsidies because they have a lot of money to put exactly in the subsidy sector. In Latin America, we have so many other social problems that needs to be considered from a human perspective, much more relevant than solving emissions. And not because emissions is not relevant, emissions are extremely relevant to the society. And usually, the poor people are the ones who are feeling the most all the hard moments that you're going through the climate changes. But we cannot pay the same bill, exactly as you said. So what US is doing right now, since the IRA, so the Inflation Reduction Act, actually, from the current government. They launched a basket of subsidies to promote the expansion of SAF and renewable diesel production in US. It's incredible, it's amazing. Congrats for them. They have money to do so. And they found a way of categorizing the market, which connects totally with what we are talking about, the book and claim system, for example. Because you can pay a higher cost for sustainable aviation fuel whenever you buy with environmental credits, or you can buy without the environmental credits attributed, so the sustainable criteria attributed to the fuel itself. So whenever you are a buyer and you need actually to commit with your decarbonization targets, you can buy sustainable aviation fuel with the sustainable criteria attached. So in US, with these credits it means that sustainable aviation fuel or renewable diesel comes with LCFS, D4. D4 is part of the Renewable Identification Number from the EPA program, and a specific credit named right now biodiesel blender tax credit, but it's about to change to clean fuel taxes. So there are three differences. The clean fuel taxes is a federal government, is a subsidy paid directly to the biofuel producer. The LCFS is part of the CARB program, the California program, and the RINs comes from the federal government as well. So we have been seeing a considerable volatile moment for RINs and LCFS right now in the US, and it has been mostly attributed to the expansion of SAF and renewable diesel production in the country. Because whenever you produce SAF, you generate 1.6 RINs. Whenever you produce renewable diesel, you generate 1.7 RINs. And for the standard biodiesel is 1.5. So having in mind the different ways to price the sustainable aviation fuel and how you can allocate the cost for the fuel itself and for the environmental credits, you have a much better picture of, okay, why I'm paying more. I'm paying for the sustainability criteria, not necessarily for the fuel itself.
Right, that's very thorough, and it just shows you the complications around both the production and the competing other types of fuel in the process. Turning back to Latin America, I want to ask Brigadier General Bellagini, how can governments in the region support the industry on its path to decarbonation? And more specifically, I think it would be helpful if you spoke to what you're seeing in your own country, in Uruguay.
Muy bien. Primero, Michael, antes de dar respuesta a tu pregunta, me gustaría hacer un poco de refuerzo de algunas ideas que ayer se mencionaron, que hoy se volvieron a mencionar y que creo que son importantes. Ayer escuchábamos que, por ejemplo, la infraestructura del aeropuerto de Ciudad de México estaba en algunas situaciones críticas y que había que hacer inversiones. O sea, hablamos de dinero. Por otro lado, escuchábamos a Roberto, CEO que ayer expuso sobre LATAM, y en una de sus frases, él dijo, el objetivo de Oasis está claro, el tema es saber cómo llegamos hasta ahí. Y volviendo a la primera palabra que utilizó Ricardo Botelho cuando comenzamos ayer, él usó dos palabras, que dice, ¿por qué no? Entonces, los países de Latinoamérica, y ahora voy a centrarme en Uruguay, tenemos que preguntarnos, si nos preguntamos, ¿por qué no enfrentar este desafío y cómo? Ricardo recién expresaba de que el proyecto en Paraguay es alrededor de 1,6 billones de dólares, ¿correcto? Un punto que él no lo mencionó, pero que ayer lo estuvimos conversando, es que Uruguay es parte a la larga de ese proyecto, porque es la puerta logística de salida de ese proyecto en el kilómetro 0 del puerto de Nueva Palmira, ubicado al oeste de Uruguay. Un tema que no es menor cuando hablamos de región, cuando hablamos de políticas que estén integradas hacia un objetivo. Uruguay no tiene quizás el volumen por la superficie, pero sí tenemos una hidrovía, un puerto que va a dar la posibilidad a esa materia prima ingresar a la producción y exportarse. Dicho esto, vemos que como país, Uruguay, tiene que tener una normativa clara, sustentar lo que anteriormente dije como región. ¿Qué instancias vienen ya del 6 al 10 de noviembre en Uruguay y apoyado en esa documentación que la CLAC diseñó hace 1 año y medio y que dije recién? Estamos desarrollando mesas público-privadas. Del 6 al 10 de noviembre en Uruguay se desarrolla junto con OLADE una instancia donde la energía y la producción de SAF es el protagonista. La Dirección Nacional de Aviación Civil de Uruguay participa junto con el Ministerio de Energía y otros actores como OLADE y ALTA para hacer sentir la voz, el interés y la necesidad de que se hable del tema. O sea, las instancias público-privadas, Uruguay asume de que son fundamentales para que los proyectos se lleven a cabo. Haciendo un poco también de recuerdo de lo que ayer se decía, se mencionaba de que un proyecto de SAF iba a demorar 10 años, y es verdad, son de larga ejecución, o sea, hay que hacer una industria, hay que tener la materia prima, hay que tener la mano de obra, pero hay que trabajar y hay que iniciar ese proceso. Dentro de eso, Uruguay ha desarrollado normativas que hacia el sector aeronáutico puntualmente lo tratan de motivar, potenciar, y voy a dar un ejemplo. Hace pocos meses entró en nuestro Parlamento, luego pasó a firma de presidencia y ahora está en publicación, un decreto que permite flexibilizar las condiciones de garantía efectiva para la instalación de compañías aéreas en Uruguay. Otra normativa que también va hacia el sector aeronáutico es la libre importación de repuestos que se dediquen para el ámbito aeronáutico, llámese para una OMA, una empresa que realice mantenimiento aeronáutico, o todo aquel repuesto va a quedar exento de gravámenes. O sea que acá vemos que hay una conciencia por parte del gobierno para la generación de normas que apoyen a la reducción de la tasa impositiva o el recargo que hay sobre el ámbito aeronáutico, que a la larga, si hablamos de la teoría de los grandes números, de los pequeños números, podríamos llegar a que esa pequeña gota va a contribuir a reducir los costos trasladados al pasaje del pasajero final. ¿Qué otras actividades en Uruguay se llevan a cabo para apoyar? En la parte económica, obviamente que nosotros necesitamos el incentivo del privado. Entonces, se han dado varias instancias de participación, en principio público-privada, para avanzar a las IP o inversiones privadas. Porque entendemos que el capital privado y la liberalización del desarrollo industrial tiene que venir de la mano del capital privado. Eso a nosotros nos ha abierto una puerta muy importante, ya mirando un poco más a futuro, para la producción de hidrógeno verde. Ya está en proceso de construcción una fábrica de hidrógeno que va a demorar los 4 o 5 años que se demore. Ya hay licitados predios en Uruguay para la instalación de matriz eólica en el océano. También están licitados los predios. Para quien no lo sepa, Uruguay tiene un 100% de matriz energética verde, basada en eólica y en fotovoltaica. Eso es una ventaja competitiva para Uruguay, para quien quiere instalarse ya mirando un poco más adelante. Pero para resumir y no seguir ahondando, lo que no nos debemos olvidar es que todo lo que el Estado puede hacer tiene que hacerse ahora. porque el 2050 o el 2035 ya está. Ya lo que fue nosotros hace media hora ya es pasado. Corre muy rápido el tiempo. Gracias, Michael.
Great points. Switching gears, I want to focus on the fact, as many of you know, South America is a continent that's just it's rich in resources, and yet we have to take a very balanced approach, just given the fragility of the ecosystem. Whether it's the rainforest or the Amazon jungle, and so Ricardo, I thought it would, I want to.
Yeah, sure.
Get up your slide here because I think running through just the feedstock availability in the region, what's available, what you're seeing. I think the audience would love to hear that.
Yes, perfect. So here in this slide, we have a little bit more about the availability of feedstocks in the region that the project are. Considering the potential production that we have in Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Uruguay, we have a really huge amount of feedstock. Obviously, here we are considering the three most important feedstocks to produce biofuels: soybean oil, animal fat, and UCO. But it's good to say, in case of soybean oil, it could be a challenge. As we know, some countries, actually some regions, they have some caps, some restrictions to use soybean oil. But here's a challenge for you. Why they are this kind of restriction? Because in the same land that we are producing soybean oil, we can switch to produce carinata, macaúba, another non-crop production. But in this case, when you produce soybean oil, 20% is oil, and 75% it's meal. Meal, it's vegetable protein. Meal, it's meat. Meat, it's tallow. Tallow, it's feedstock. So sometimes I'm seeing this market, some restriction that's really is not being like something that we really need to work, because in this case, in South America, as we are seeing in the United States, soybean oil could be part of the solution and reduce the price of the SAF. Because when you're considering the amount that we have of soybean oil, considering to animal fat, it's a huge amount of feedstock available. And if you have more availability of feedstock, the price is going to be better. And if you have a better price of feedstock, obviously the SAF price is going to be lower. So it's something that we need to understand a little bit, if this kind of restriction could restrict the offer of SAF in the market. Obviously, in South America, we have a huge potential to increase the production of even considering another kind of feedstock, but we have also a challenge. Certification is a challenge in Brazil. Traceability, it's a challenge in Brazil. And we really need to teach the producers how to care their chain to use the whole potential that we have for this certification. And also something that Nicole explained a little bit during her presentation, it was about the different mechanisms or pathways considering the carbon emissions. Because the same stuff that we are selling to USA, there is an emission value. It's not the same when you sell to Europe. And what is the correct number? What is the number that we must consider in Latin America emissions? And how we will work on book and claim if you don't have just one regulation for those emissions? Some points to be discussed. Obviously, we have not so much time, but...
Mike, if you allow me to just to add some color on it as well. We are focused here in the HEFA pathway, but I think it's relevant to mention another pathway which can be totally developed in the region, which is the alcohol to jet. So Brazil is the second largest producer of ethanol, just behind the US. And there is a tremendous opportunity for Brazil on that production road, alcohol to jet. Why? If you consider the total sustainable aviation fuel demand for 2050, and just consider just 25% of that total production, total expected demand, sorry, and say that 25% are going to be supplied through alcohol-to-jet pathway. It means that 90 billion liters of ethanol are going to be needed to do the conversion to jet equivalent. 90 billion liters nowadays means almost 33% of the total Brazilian ethanol production. It's huge. So it's quite common whenever I'm presenting in a more like road transport environment, there are some strong concerns about electrification and how it can impact in the biofuel demand, the ethanol demand, in the biodiesel demand. And as we are not seeing the penetration of SAF in Latin America, so in the first graph that we just presented here, we saw that Latin America have less than 5% penetration of SAF expected according to our numbers. We are not seeing electrification as a decarbonization pathway for road transportation in Latin America for multiple reasons that unfortunately I'm seeing 2 minutes here and we don't have time to go through. But that pathway, alcohol to jet, is a tremendous opportunity. My question is, will Brazil and Latin America be an exporter of raw material? And in that point, I'm calling ethanol raw material with some brackets. Or are you gonna be focused in developing the industry here? Develop SAF plants, renewable diesel plants in the region, and aggregate all the technology and revenues that a new industry can bring to a region that demands so much development. So that's something for us. You're going to export ethanol to US and let them produce SAF with our regional ethanol, or are you going to invest more in the SAF development here?
I'm glad you brought that up, Nicole. I think many in this room know that, you know, I sort of refer to Brazil as the sleeping giant on this front. Brazil was way out in front back in the 1970s. You know, you always say if there is a will, there is a way. And because of the oil crisis, made the decision to start producing ethanol from sugarcane. And today, it's why Brazil and the U.S. account for, I want to say, over 80% of all ethanol production. So there is a history, there is a path, there was a response. And so you hope that, you know, what drove the catalyst and what drove that back in 1973 or 1975, that with what the world is facing today, that's the same impetus for the leaders of Brazil to take that initiative and go forward. I am looking at the time. I'm going to fit in one last question before we wrap up. I think with airlines, if you arrive within 15 minutes, it's considered on time. So I want to ask one more, and then we'll wrap up. And this is, you know, to Brigadier General Blengini. Given your background, I'm not sure if people in the audience know that you were also an aviator in the military. So we have a pilot amongst our ranks, and I would say that if there's anybody on this panel who knows aviation technology better than anyone, and probably many in this room, it would be you. And so I think we would be remiss if we just spent this entire 50 minutes to an hour talking about SAF and at least not touching on some of the technology. You spoke about hydrogen, right, in with Uruguay, et cetera. And so maybe a minute or two on some of those technological hurdles from a pilot's perspective.
Sí, gracias Michael por hacer mención esa parte de mi background. Es muy interesante introducir un factor que es el factor humano acá, porque hemos hablado de billones de dólares, de millones de toneladas, porcentajes, números, gráficas, y nos olvidamos que a la larga, por ahora, seguimos siendo seres humanos los que estamos detrás de una aeronave y que logramos alcanzar, como parte de un sistema, el objetivo de cumplir, llegar a término con un vuelo, cumplir con el timing que se nos ajusta en nuestra compañía aérea, y somos aquel al que van a medir con el 5%, 10% o 5 minutos, o que cierre la puerta, o que cumpla con el itinerario, o si tiene más o menor cualificación. Entonces, la visión del área humana es que el tema del 2050 parece muy lejano, pero creo que trae muchas incertidumbres también la tecnología. Porque aquí hablamos solamente de SAF y podemos hablar del 2035, objetivos intermedios. Pero el futuro nos va a traer un gran desafío que ya es hoy, que es la Urban Air Mobility, por ejemplo. Tema que hoy no lo estamos discutiendo, pero que sí directamente va de la mano con el factor humano. ¿Cuántas personas, cuánto del sector aeronáutico va a quedar fuera? ¿Cómo puede ser un grado de incertidumbre ese nuevo cambio de paradigma tecnológico? La introducción de nuevas tecnologías, como puede ser el hidrógeno, hemos escuchado quizás en otros foros otras tecnologías, el ahorro y la menor contaminación, obliga también a que las tripulaciones nos comprometamos en el uso correcto, la capacitación, el ayornamiento a las nuevas tecnologías aeronáuticas, llámese las nuevas plataformas, las nuevas aeronaves, las nuevas plantas de poder, porque a la larga el que va a dar el comando adelante para despegar, por ahora, sigue siendo un ser humano. Y también es parte de la cadena esta numérica que hablamos. O sea, no tenemos que dejar de pensar de que todo esto que es número, macroeconomía, ayer hablábamos de macroeconomía, muy interesante, pero realmente el estudio de Oxford me dejó pensando mucho y no, a veces hay que leer de nuevo, pero es número, macroeconomía, pero nos olvidamos del human resource y es muy importante no olvidarnos de eso y simplemente fuera de esta pregunta, pero que me quedó pendiente de la anterior, cuando hablamos de participación público-privada o privada, un tema que en Uruguay hemos estado trabajando mucho es la concesión de aeropuertos internacionales a manos de privados. Para dar esa concesión tuvimos que trabajar con ellos también en el concepto de cómo ese aeropuerto tiene que ajustarse al futuro del aprovisionamiento de combustibles sostenibles, que no es menor para la logística de aprovisionamiento de un aeropuerto. Perdón, Michael.
Just getting to our final question and wrap up here. This slide, it's aspirational. It has all the hallmarks of good intentions. You can see the commitments made by various carriers around the world, including many, many in this region. And so as a final question, to Nicole, why are we all here? What are we trying to accomplish?
That's the best question I have ever received. I love straightforward points. And because we are always short in time, and as we are just discussing, 2050 is just in the corner, and we are discussing how to solve a problem, and apparently it's so far, but it's just right over here. Why we are all here, and I would ask yourselves, all the audience, why we are here. And the point that we need to remind ourselves every single day is why we are waking up, why we are discussing a point, why we are putting so much energy. I will use the word energy here because everything is related to energy. Why we are spending so much energy on many different aspects. And the reason why I'm here today, and I understand that most of you are as well, is to discuss one single point. We have, how many atmospheres do we have? One, right? So we are 190 countries, 194, but we have a single atmosphere. So the problem we need to solve is a global problem. There is a single solution? Thanks God, no. There are multiple solutions, and that's the beauty of the things. We don't need to find one single pathway, one single solution, the way that European countries are targeting to active their offset agreements is through one specific pathway because they don't have feedstock, they don't have land, they don't have many different things that we do have. We do have feedstocks. We have the potential to do many different kind of biofuels through different technologies. So the point that I would like to leave, my last message is, yes, we need to decarbonize. but we live in different societies that need to all together be combined, put our beautiful minds and brilliant minds together and think, okay, how we can reduce emissions, but do not bring in an additional problem to the society to solve. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Y el siguiente panel trata de inteligencia artificial, algo que ya no es aplazable. ¿Estamos preparados para la inteligencia artificial en aviación? ¿Es esto algo nuevo en la industria? ¿Cómo impacta el servicio al cliente, las ventas y las operaciones? Para hablar un poco más de esto, invitamos al escenario a Pilar Wolfsteller, America's Air Transport Editor de Flight Global, quien nos acompaña como moderadora. Y los panelistas, Juan Pablo Lafosse, CEO de Travelex, Chris Brannigan, CIO, CTO de IBS Software, Seth Cassell, copresidente de Everymundo y Chief Revenue Officer de Pros Travel, Rafael Echevarne, director general de ASILAC, y Lieutenant General Marcio Bruno Bonotto, vicepresidente de DSEA. Bienvenidos.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning again. I see the ranks have thinned somewhat from yesterday, but I'm glad you guys all stuck around because we have a really exciting topic today, and that is artificial intelligence. And I think we're all kind of testing the waters on this. And we have 5 experts here on the panel who are going to tell us their opinions about AI in the aviation industry and how we're beginning to use this technology to our advantage. So just a short introduction. Aviation has always been at the forefront of the cutting edge of technology, and now we have this new tool in our toolkit to add and to harness, and that is artificial intelligence. It's creeping into the industry, and we're potentially on the cusp of a revolution that will assist aviation like no technology before it. And while not everyone has embraced AI yet wholeheartedly, we are well on our way on learning how to utilize all the data that every flight, every passenger, and every trip generates to our advantage. So we've got things like personal product offerings, increased efficiency in operations, enhanced safety measures on the ground and in the air, as well as meeting our ambitious sustainability targets. So AI is transforming the business, whether we like it or not, in the cockpit, in the cabin, in airspace, in training environments, and beyond. So some of the questions I'd love to discuss in this panel is, what is useful AI for our purposes? And where is it being used already? Where's the potential greatest, and also the risks? What will we need to learn ourselves in order to help make AI help us? And what can we learn from other industries and perhaps other regions as well? So there's a lot to consider here. And like I said, we have 5 experts to talk about how they see the industry using this new technology for good and for everyone. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining me, first of all. And I'd like to start off with just going down the row here. Allow you to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your companies, because some people might not be familiar with them, and get some initial thoughts about where we are using this new technology now.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Bonotto. I'm from the SEA. The SEA is the air navigation service in Brazil. And to talk about AI is something very complicated because we follow some protocols from ICAO, for example, and when introduce new technologies, it takes 8 years until this becomes true because aviation is a very safety critical domain. So all the industry is using artificial intelligence, but they are looking for some short-term solutions. In aviation, we cannot do that because we have some risks. I was outside, and one lady talked to me about this, and she asked me, oh, I have a Tesla. My car can do everything, even to park in my car. I thought, okay, what happened if you are on the road and you have a problem in your car? Oh, I go to the road shoulder and ask for help. Okay, where is the shoulder for the aircraft? There is no solution. So that's why people talk, why you are flying with 2 pilots until now? Everybody knows you are more than me, that one single pilot can fly every aircraft now. But why you are using 2 of them? So this is the evolution. I guess the risk is something that must be very carefully studied before using it in aviation. Of course, we already use. I'm an old pilot, so I started flying old aircrafts. Now I'm flying Embraer Legacy 500. And I have some conflict in the cabin because the young guy just on my side, when I take off, he said, okay, autopilot. I said, no, I'd like to fly a little bit. No, autopilot, FMS, so the aircraft can do everything, even to landing. So if everything go well, it's okay, but something go wrong, and then things change.
Yeah, so safety is a big topic that I want to get to a little bit more detail a little later. But right. Chris, you're up.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Chris Brannigan. I'm the CTO for IBS Software. We are a SaaS provider, very much in the airline space. We provide systems for cargo, for loyalty, for iFlight operations, and for PSS. And AI is not new. It's been around a long time. But there's been a recent revolution, which for me has really democratized AI. In the past, the barriers to entry were pretty high. We always needed to have a really experienced data scientists who could do the work. But for us, in our business, we've been able recently to bring graduates in and partner them up with some data scientists to start experimenting and build use cases, which we have a whole long list of things that we'd love to trial, and we were making things production ready. Things like in our airline operations platform, we've introduced a natural language, so a conversational UI to enable the ops controllers just to ask the system, what flights have I got in the air coming into Dallas, rather than having to go through a complex application. So, that was relatively simple implementation done by some graduates there. So we see lots and lots of application for the newer generation of Gen AI tools that are being produced and exposed into the open source market by the big providers. So, I just think this thing will accelerate faster and faster as the barriers to entry become lower. And for the airline industry, the customer interaction that's possible because of this will make life a lot easier for our customers. If you consider that the way call centers are often flooded, and the introduction of chatbots that are able to interpret your information in your databases and answer questions quickly on behalf of your customers. Because these Gen AI systems, the language learning models, they take in your policies, your procedures, your real-time information, and can combine them to answer questions a lot faster than we could do. So I think it'll take a lot of the pressure off of call centers when we get into difficult times or peak times. So I think, there'll be a huge change in the coming years with this introduction of new technology.
Thank you. Seth.
Hi, everyone. I'm Seth Cassell. I'm originally the co-founder and co-president of Everymundo, which provides airlines with fare marketing technology, systems, and tools to bring live fares everywhere and anywhere across their website and in their marketing so that they can drive more direct sales through their .com rather than through OTAs and other indirect channels. We were acquired by Pros in 2021, about 2 years ago. Pros is best known as the global leader in revenue management systems, tools to optimize the fares and align your yield and your load factor to your forecasts, but has expanded over the years into shopping and pricing and retailing and distribution and merchandising and really all of the primary commercial tools that an airline is using to drive passenger revenue and really optimize at that level. And so to second what Chris has said, AI has been part and parcel of what we do for a very long time. I mean, I would argue that Pros was doing AI before it was called AI. It was just data science and machine learning and automation and things like that, because that is what revenue management is when it's done well and at a sophisticated level. It's simply a constant ingestion of data and an ever-evolving identification of the right fares for the right passengers at the right time, and then the automated execution of that at scale. So if you take some of those words out, that is what AI is. That has now expanded within Pros to pricing ancillary products in a dynamic way, also using AI. On the Everymundo side of things, we're using AI for very simple use cases already, like translation, some basic coding. I think our head of engineering told us that about now 10% of the code written so far this year was using a tool called Copilot, which you steer, and in doing so can use it to write the code, and then you just check the code. And then we're doing some work across Everymundo and Pros, for example, taking the load factor data of the revenue management system and bringing that into some of the marketing automation tools so that the efforts on an automated basis are pointing toward the routes that need the most help. And in the other way, Everymundo taking shopping data, sending it into the Pros platform so that the Pros forecasting can leverage real-time demand, what people are shopping for right now. So these are, and we can get into this certainly in the talk today, but practical use cases that because of the access and the democratization of AI, as Chris eloquently put it, now there's this openness to using it simply to do things faster, do them with more precision, and do them at scale. Whether that's making decisions or actual execution, that's really what it boils down to. And there's so many things that can be done in the products and operationally within the company.
Juan Pablo.
Hi, I'm Juan Pablo Lafos, founder and CEO of TravelX. Basically, we are a technology company that helps the airlines to make their air tickets transferable, and we're building different use cases and solutions that help the airlines to improve their customer experience, but especially increase their revenues. Some of these use cases are, for example, the capability of buying back their inventory that they have sold at lower fares to sell them at high-yield passengers, or move low-yield passengers, leisure passengers, to other flights with empty seat to be able to sell these seats to high-yield passengers. The peer-to-peer transfer, peer-to-peer resale, etc. And basically, I think that as everybody have said, AI have been within our industry for a long time, but I think that the evolution of AI in the last probably 3, 4, 5 years, especially with generative AI, deep learning, machine learning, etc., it's making AI much more powerful as a tool, as a technology to better predict and take decision with large amount of data. And there are so many use cases that can help not only on the operation side, on the retailing, merchandising, marketing, and customer-facing, customer experience areas, like as have just said, how to deliver how to, really understand our customer, how to deliver personalized content, personalized offers, how to understand to predict their behavior, how to, understand the best channel to reach those customers, and use AI to create that content, to deliver that content. I think that it's so much powerful. For example, another use case is, our industry have been talking about, the replacement of travel agencies by, artificial travel agents, and this, I think that right now we're closer than ever. This is going to happen sooner than later. And I think that a good challenge for our industries, how to integrate these artificial travel agents in order to be able to create these personalized trips, create all these personalized recommendations in order not to enhance the customer experience, but also to increase conversion and increase the airline's revenues.
Rafael.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Rafael Echevarri. I'm the Director General of ACI Latin America. ACI is the International Airports Association. I'm covering Latin America and the Caribbean. So yes, as it's already been mentioned, AI has been with us for a while. We can, it's the evolution of technology. From my point of view, when it comes to airports, I think that the interesting bit here is to join forces between airports and airlines in relation to ensuring that the customer service is actually improved, okay? So, we can talk about commercial aspects, management aspects, and of course, each company, each organization will do whatever it has to do when it comes to AI. But from my point of view, I think that the operational aspects is what really there is a huge potential in terms of security, in terms of safety, in terms of predictability. Predictability, for example, I think is very, very important for airports in the Caribbean, knowing when that aircraft is going to arrive, ensuring that everything is in line. ACDM, collaborative decision-making, is actually one aspect that is absolutely essential. And also one thing that I already mentioned in our call, and it is that all these new developments that we are seeing is very, very exciting. But I think that there is so much that can be done with what we already have, okay? When it comes to reducing those queues that we always encounter at the airports in security and in immigration, and of course in reducing that paperwork, that totally unnecessary paperwork that we have to endure when we travel. I still do not understand today why we have to fill in an immigration and a customs form when we have already provided all that information. So we have solutions right now, here now, that we are not yet making use of, which I guess we could call it is part of AI. But that's what really is exciting. We are not really harnessing yet.
Thank you all. And so you brought up a couple of really great questions, and I think one of them, which affects most of us, all of us who travel, of course, is the customer friendliness of some of this stuff. So I want to ask the tech guys, when will chatbots get smarter? There's so much information out there, right? And sometimes when you're dealing as a customer, obviously I understand why the companies are using those types of tools, to save money, cut down on call center activity, whatever. But as a customer, they're really dumb sometimes. So when can we expect them to be, AI is using all of this, taking all of this data, and still I can't change my ticket because the chatbot doesn't understand what I want. Chris?
Yeah, I don't think it's that far away, right? So, this is actually, it means that, as long as the systems are, we're using ChatGPT to investigate our applications and to map them to understand what people can do. So, for me, it's not too far away from when you can go into a chat bot and say, can I change my booking? And you'll get an answer, what can I do with my booking? It's really not that far away. I think our first step into this really is we've got an HR chatbot there, where we've taken all of our policies and our contracts and put it into ChatGPT, and now we're giving it to the staff in the business, and then they can ask the chatbot, can I carry my holidays over to next year? Can I add my brother-in-law to my medical insurance policy? So very simple things that really just reduce the friction in our business, but easy to do, because all we've done is we've taken a whole load of documents and pushed them into this platform, which has aggregated that information and very simply is able to answer those questions. So then you can see it's not a big stretch to take that, to say, okay, we'll start to run some queries against this database to say, what can I do with my booking? So I don't think we're that far away from it.
Seth, do you want to add something?
Sure, yeah, just to add on to what Chris had said. It's close and getting better all the time. I think anyone, particularly a frequent flyer over the last 5 years, has felt where it's come to some degree, but I think one of the biggest obstacles is the underlying legacy technology that it needs to speak with, which is obviously not built contemplating the AI on top of it that can then power it. And so, in parallel to this introduction of, I guess, more accessible AI into this industry, you have this, I was going to say revolution, but it's happening too slow for that. It's an evolution toward more modern retailing and more modern technology, coined offer order management. And the acceleration of that in parallel to the adoption of AI will actually be an exponential driver of better chatbots, of chatbots doing what you would expect them to do the way you just described it.
So I'm hearing that airlines need to invest more into their basic infrastructure in order to be able to use these new tools in a more efficient way.
Yeah, when your primary commercial technology is monolithic, is not built to accommodate external technology to interact in a clean, seamless way with it, bringing in super modern technology like AI, like cutting edge stuff like ChatGPT, for example, you're just fighting an uphill battle from the beginning, and so things need to meet in the middle. So it's a deeper, and it's a mindset shift of adopting AI, making it something that you want institutional knowledge on, that you're, even us internally had to, as a technology provider, had to sit down and say, we're making AI important. It's not just something we do in the background in our products. It's something that we want to be pervasive in our business, and just starting to drive that, and even in quarterly goals and things like that, saying, here's the role of, here's this new thing we're doing with AI internally or in the products. So that needs, so I think as an airline, you need that, but also you need to go a level deeper to really understand the technology and the tools and the use cases where you want AI to cooperate, and evaluate what needs to happen to actually bring that to bear faster.
I think to some extent it's identifying all the workflows that sit between those two levels, so you can understand what your options are. So at the moment, we're not at that level, but you need to invest in interpreting your application to give you the rules and the workflows so you can answer those questions.
Juan Pablo?
Yeah, I think that, chatbot has been here for just a long time. The first one was created, that was called Lisa. It was created in 1966, and it was, impressively powerful. And I'm a heavy user, for example, of ChatGPT, and it's just unbelievable, the response that you have. But as Seth have just said, what is important is, in order to be really accurate, it's important to get all that data, and sometimes it's not easy, to get all that data that would let the chatbot to learn using the current airlines stack. And I think that's probably the largest challenge that airlines should face.
So you brought up ChatGPT. I just want to say with pride that none of my presentation was written by ChatGPT. I wrote it myself. Maybe it should have been.
Why not? Some of my answers are...
But with this democratization of AI, and as you say, some of you say, it's been around for a while, right? We used to just call it big data, right? Now it's called artificial intelligence. There are also risks that come with using these types of technologies. You mentioned safety. We're talking about in airports, identifying passengers. Can you talk a little bit about how those risks can be mitigated for the airline industry?
Well, for me, you must follow all the engineering protocols. So, as I said before, we need more technology all the time. I remember I have a small boy, 1 year old, they take this cell phone from my boss and start with the fingers. What's happened? 1 year old. So, but I guess we need to explainability. We have to provide reliable, accurate issues. We have certification process that must be followed. Okay? And it takes time, and sometimes the industry doesn't want to perform all the steps because, we live in an economic global area, so everybody wants to produce, wants to grow up. And as I said before, and sorry to repeat, but in aviation, the risks, we cannot afford of this. We need to put all the layers that's needed to have safety. And it's not only safety, we can talk about security as well. Because nowadays, the Israeli war that started 2 weeks ago, at the same day, I received some calls from the companies that your buddies complain about the GPS. Okay, you have some different signs from GPS. Some companies grounded 10, 20 aircrafts. So this is security. It's not safety, but it's risks. So we need this. We need some human-machine collaboration, I guess. During all this process, we have to put the human being in the loop. Because when we talk about AI, we talk about solving complex problems. This is, or as Turing said in 1938, unsolvable problems, but in order to support the operations or in order to operate it. I guess in the future, you are going to operate with AI, but I guess we are not ready for this now. So I guess today we need to support the operation. Of course, I like to have the two to work properly. And you are using. There is no air traffic controller without all the system, AI, including our softwares. Otherwise, because the complexity of the airspace, so there is no way to control without AI. But the decision maker is the human for now. I believe that in the future, it should be the machine. But I guess you're not ready now for that.
Right, but humans are fallible. They make mistakes,
yes.
Right? Machines will also make mistakes.
Machines was made by human, so it's the same boat.
No, but I remember in the 80s when computers started coming, garbage in, garbage out. Is that a big risk that the regulators are, how are the regulators grappling with this problem? How are they trying to solve it?
Redundancy, for example, all the system that you have in air traffic controller, for example, ACAL asks us to have two redundancies, two items. If you fail, you have one. For example, in Brazil, you have three. You have satellites, you have optical fiber, and straight point-to-point, in order to not be surprised with some fail. AI is the same. We have to have some protocols, some analysis, and one day we will believe that everything will work perfect. There is no way to come back. We achieve this point sooner or later.
So we've gone. There's no turning back. We're on this journey, and it's going to keep going forward.
Yes, my point of view.
Yeah. Okay. Rafael, we were talking a little bit about security and safety, and in the airport environment, of course, we do have security issues. How do you see these kinds of technologies, and specifically in your area of operation, helping both airlines or vendors at the airports and the passengers to create a more seamless or more comfortable travel experience?
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying, well, the security aspect, I think, is absolutely essential here, and that's where AI really can help, you know. I really like the situation that we have in Uruguay. Uruguay is one country where, you know, you can enter the country without having to talk to an immigration officer, even if you are not a Uruguayan national. And my question is, why don't we have this in all the countries, not only in Latin America, but around the world? Okay? I used to work in the Caribbean, and I used to say, you know, why don't you differentiate yourself from the other destinations in the Caribbean in ensuring that all the passengers can enter this country, you know, as a breeze, you know, without the need to actually interact with anyone, and let them go to the beach immediately, all right? Because the technology exists, and I always give the example of Uruguay as being a leading country in our part of the world. All that, of course, is based on existing technology, and all that is, of course, based on AI, you know? When you make an airplane reservation, you are already providing all the information that is necessary. Your name, date of birth, passport number, and the only thing that you have to do is when you arrive in the country is for the machine to look at your face and say, yes, you are who you say you are. That's all you need. No need for customs forms, no need for immigration forms, where you are just basically repeating all the information that you've provided a number of times. When you access a security area, why do I have to talk to anyone? Why do I have to interact with a person that maybe on that day he's in a bad mood, all right? You know, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want the barrier to open because the machine has checked that I am the person who I say I am on that ticket, all right? And the same thing throughout. And now on security, because security, of course, is the most critical aspect here. There is where AI, I think, can do an incredible job in ensuring that all the information, all the things that you are carrying with you are safe, and that those things are processed expeditiously. That I think would be fantastic. And as I say, I want to emphasize, most of that already exists and is being applied in many airports around the world. And there is no reason, there is absolutely zero excuse for having any queues at immigration and security today. And I think that that's the way that many destinations are going to differentiate from others by the introduction of all these things. And I really congratulate Uruguay, and I really encourage most countries and most airports to introduce this. One big question here is small airports, you know, the cost of these systems and so on, all right? That is an issue that needs to be addressed. And also, and I think that here, once again, Uruguay can help us, that there is always this question by many governments, what will I do with this immigration and these security officials, okay? And my answer is always the same. You do not train an immigration officer to put stamps on a passport. That's not what you train them for. A monkey could do that. A machine can do that. Let the machine do that and have those guys do the profiling that's what they've been trained for. So, I mean, as you can see, I go back to the fact that we already have all this at hand, and we have to make use of it.
I see we have some very strong opinions. Very passionate about the topic.
Absolutely, because you know what, the area where we get the worst scores, airports around the world, is in the queuing. And it's precisely in those areas where the airport itself doesn't have any control, which is security and immigration. I mean, it is totally intolerable that we have waiting lines of 1 hour to enter a country. It is going back in time. It is absolutely ridiculous, okay? I'm very passionate.
Thank you. So apparently, I've never traveled to Uruguay, so I do not know this streamlined experience, but we do apparently have, you know, a success story here in the region. Is aviation as a whole, are we lagging behind generally in technology?
I mean, if we see, especially when we're talking about personalization or hyper-personalization, I mean, we see so many examples on other industry and marketplaces, Amazon, on I don't know streaming like Netflix, etc., where they are really predicting what are the products or services that I would be willing to buy, I would be willing to use, and I think our industry is way behind that level of personalization.
Yeah, I'd say we're very heavily investing in one order and offer management and airline retailing, and we can see there's a strong demand for that for airlines that haven't invested and been stuck with some legacy applications for a long time. But I think in the next 10 years it will change dramatically because there's a real strong drive now and a lot of energy going behind these projects.
Seth, do you have something now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a hard question to answer because in some regards, yes, particularly what was just referred to around retailing and e-commerce and that digital user experience. Certainly, it's not as seamless as buying on Amazon, for example. But in other areas, I've found us to be leaders, in certain regards. So, for example, in pricing and revenue optimization, how many other consumer-facing industries can you think of where it's acceptable to sell a product for multiples of a different price for the same product, and we've conditioned the market to be okay with that, right? I don't know that they love it, but they're okay with it. That is how our industry works. And so, I mean, even the evolution of pros as a company began with airline revenue management, and now half the company is providing pricing optimization for different B2B transactions, and so applying that approach to different industries. So, and then COVID substantially accelerated a lot of the touchless customer experience technology in the industry, which I would argue is pretty close to the top. I mean, it's pretty amazing if you're flying on the right airline that has invested in this technology, how incredibly communicative the experience is end to end. So I think depending on what aspect of the business you look at, we're either leading other industries and really a standard bearer, or we're lagging behind and trying to catch up.
Is there an airline that you could give an example of someone who's doing it right?
Sure. I mean, I'm based in Miami, so I'm addicted to American Airlines, and
addicted.
Yeah, that's right. I have that. That is what I'm fed, and I have no choice, and I can't get enough of it. But I find the experience to be really phenomenal. I from web to app to airport is pretty consistent. My status may help with that to some degree because I'm getting a lot of information all the time, and they have all of my information. But I mean, even to book the flight here, I have preloaded passport information. I'm 2 clicks away from being checked in. I arrive at the airport. I get notifications about everything as I go. You can really tune out in some regards in ways that you couldn't even 5 years ago.
So we talked a lot about the customer experience. I want to ask about things like public acceptance of this technology when it starts coming into the cockpit, for example, right? You spoke about single pilot operations. At the moment, we have 2 human pilots flying the plane everywhere. But we have the company, the aviation airframers are talking about single pilot operations, about developing that technology. Will the public accept AI flying an airplane? You seem to have a lot of confidence in the machines.
This is a $1 million question because today we've already had this technology. For example, Embraer has sold, I guess, more than 200. It's like a shopper, but it's not a shopper, but to fly without pilot, but to be operating in the future. And the question is how trustworthy you are as a customer, not as a technician, or So this is the secret for the market today. For example, today the company that find out how to control small drones on the urban area will be billionaire, because everybody's looking for a solution for that, because everybody wants to fly the drones to deliver the bakery, the butcher, and everybody in the same space at the same time. So this is, and there is just one way to do this, using AI, okay? But returning your question, you know, there is, as I told you, I have a small boy, and I'm very worried about his future. So as a grandfather, dad, I have some experience. So I take a look, what can do? Because some professionals you won't have in the future. And then I realized there is a link on the internet called Will Robots Take My Job.com. I don't know if you already saw it. I was interested. And
will your robot take my job?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I put there airline pilots, co-pilots, and flight engineers. And they said that in 15 years, we have an automated risk of 65% to be replaced. And if you go to the air traffic controller, it's 47% of chance. So why it's not happening today? First, because of trust. And second, because there is some abilities that the machine cannot do. So when you are worried about your neighbor, some manual skills that you cannot do that. So that's what's written on the site. So the question is, as a pilot, people ask me, would you go to an aircraft without a pilot? Of course not, never. But if you ask to my boy, that's since 1 year old, is rest the day on the tablet, why not? This is, so it's a question of generation. You are changed too fast. And although I don't trust this for now, in 20 years, probably to be something common. Remember the Jetsons. I don't know who know the Jetsons. So the future is now.
What about things like ethical concerns, right? I mean, machines will make rational decisions, but humans have that additional ability to make ethical decisions. Is that something that we're going to be able to see in AI in the future? Or are the decisions going to be made purely by data? Is there going to be any feeling in it? Anyone?
I think that, I mean, everything that is linked to how do we manage, you know, our consumers' data is one issue, and the other one is, for example, do we need to let our customers know that they're chatting with a bot or not? Do we need to let our customers understand that there are some safety decisions that are made by AI tools? I mean, I think that those
rather
are
than
the
humans.
type of, yeah.
Yeah.
May I add something? For example, when you said the guy from Google that said, okay, I'm resigning because it's going too fast, or when one tests AI robot, that, you know, when you go for a site, if put your fingers there on the box that you have a car or something like this in order to avoid the robots. And then in the chat, the robot asked for one guy to help him to do that. And the guy, why you are asking me to do that? I'm blind, I cannot see. Oh, sure, poor guy, I will help you, put this. The robot has done it. It's scaring me, you know? I don't know what happened in the future. So, but I guess it's, if you have some protocols, as the technicians is here, if you have some protocols that you can assure that you have all the things that can be done at the correct time, I guess you can avoid this kind of issue, but it's complicated.
Yeah, and we do have stories about, or people are fearing that when AI goes rogue, right, and makes the wrong decisions. Chris.
And shares too much information, right? That's the thing. It's about making sure you train the models so that they understand what's genuinely private, right, and actually what can be shared. Because obviously there's a lot of information in there. You know, you've all seen the mistakes that are made at checkout on a till where you offer a discount on something that was private. You know, that type of thing we need to be careful about. But I don't see them being sentient, but I do think that, you know, they are going to get smarter and smarter, and we need to make sure that we put in enough checks and balances so that we don't expose private data.
Yeah, I think a consideration, a real practical one that's come up for us is as the ability to personalize improves, you very quickly can venture into the territory of discriminatory practices, right? Because we're collecting all this data about individuals, about, you know, demographic, psychographic, ethnographic information, then all the behavioral information, and very, you know, again, it can become almost predatory in the way in which you leverage this data to drive business outcomes. So there's absolutely an ethical concern that's there today already.
And how is that being dealt with? I mean, how will the discriminatory part of it be taken out of it?
For us at the moment, it's checking ourselves. It honestly comes down to company cultural choices and understanding that profit at all costs is a very dangerous mantra to live by. And so, and then even backing out of that, it's not just because it's the right thing to do, but if people found out, where would that leave you, right? And as a company, that's often a decent litmus test to check against. And so, yeah, there's not an AI solution to that AI problem, as at least where we are today, but we're seeing legitimate ethical concerns come up in certain areas as things advance.
And I think it's company culture led. So if you are an ethical company, then you impose that upon your people and you want them to behave that way.
So I guess, you know, the next question is, how do you determine if you're going to be an ethical company? I mean, who makes that decision, right? I mean, it's
leadership, right? Yeah, you have to be eyes open and honest. I mean, we've seen, for example, when certain social networks have, I would argue, run afoul of ethical guidelines and boundaries, and we all know what it looks like when it happens. They knew what it looked like when it happened. Investigations are proving that they were cognizant of these issues, and so that's a negative example of what that looks like.
Right. So we've just got a couple of minutes left. I've got actually two final questions. One is, how can we here in Latin America lead on AI into the future?
I think that Latin America has, extremely talented IT teams. Probably, my feeling is that Latin America can lead on, especially customer-facing AI-based applications. I think that's probably one of the areas where we can be leaders.
Rafael, other than Uruguay, is there anything else?
Well, I mean, Uruguay is a country that I like very much about that. Aruba, for example, is another country that is doing things very well. And I think that it comes down to harmonization. Governments talking to each other. We have the fundamentals for that to happen. We have a Mercosur, we have a Comunidad Andina, we have all these political groupings, a CARICOM. I think it's very important for all these countries to talk to each other and, pay attention to the countries that are doing it right, send the message clearly that there is nothing to fear about this, and then take it forward. I think that it comes down to the fact that politicians are not taking the steps. It comes down to that.
I'd say you can make language less of a barrier. So Meta have recently released an open source version of their platform, which will do voice to text and translate into 100 languages. So, just by using that technology, you can open up your services to all countries here.
Okay, I guess I have a very important part in this market, because Latin America has one thing that is missing all around the world, that's creativity. So when or not, when we have the view that Europe, United States, they are that. I have opportunity to work for the last 20 years with engineering and overseas, and I saw my guys all the time. It's big surprise for Americans, for Europeans, for Chinese, the quality of our engineers, because there is not only the technical issue, but the creativity, the way to think outside of the box. So in order to work on this area, I guess this is very important. So I guess some things is reserved for our people overseas regarding this kind. Or you are going to create dogs. You know the joke, no? You have a pilot and a dog. And the dog is there just to avoid the pilot to touch anything, because the machine will do everything. So if the pilot tries to put the dog, beat him. So that's it.
So I think that is an aspect that, as you say, the engineers are very creative, that the region is being underestimated, perhaps, from the rest of the world. All right, final question. We've got about 1 minute left, and I'll start with Rafael. I want everybody to answer this question. AI is no longer postponable. Are we ready?
Absolutely. Yes. The answer is yes.
We are absolutely ready.
We're mostly ready.
Mostly.
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready.
We are ready, but safety is mandatory. And I ask you guys, are you ready to fly in aircraft without pilot, in airspace control with your machine as a controller? So it's not for me, the question is for you. This is a question of trust, not the technology.
Something for everyone to think about. So thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you, everybody. And appreciate your time. Have a good day.
Vamos con la foto oficial, por favor. Muchísimas gracias. Bien, y antes de seguir con el siguiente panel, queremos presentarles un video a cargo de SJK Airport.
Sao Paulo, one of the world's major economic and financial centers, a global metropolis, vibrant, alive, radiating development throughout Latin America and the world, and the most important hub of Brazilian air transportation. Here, 80 million passengers pass through every year, along with nearly 1 million tons of air cargo. And now, this global metropolis has a new and modern low-cost international airport for both cargo and passengers. SJK Airport. Operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and with top-notch infrastructure, capable of accommodating the world's largest aircrafts. SJK Airport emerges as the newest and wisest choice for passengers and cargo in Sao Paulo, with a 12,000 square meter secure terminal. SJK Airport efficiently and safely handles all types of domestic and international air cargo. The airport features advanced high-precision air traffic control system, meeting the most stringent operation standards of regularity, punctuality, and safety. Our streamlined passenger terminal, with a 6,000 square meter area, is properly equipped with the ultimate solutions in comfort and airport security for passengers and airlines. Our infrastructure and ground services ensure speed and efficiency, resulting in the shortest aircraft turnaround time in the market. Located in the first smart city in Brazil, São José dos Campos, in the Paraíba Valley, one of the most prosperous and industrialized regions in Brazil, just an hour away from Sao Paulo. SJK Airport provides easy intercity access through high-quality highways, making urban mobility and intermodal connectivity a reality in the region. Surrounded by large global corporations, the airport takes pride in being the home of Embraer. It's exactly here where it all began in 1969, that the world's most modern aircrafts are manufactured nowadays. Strategically located close to one of Brazil's largest oil refineries, major source of the country's jet fuel, and fully committed to environmental responsibility, we are always seeking smart solutions for sustainable aviation fuel supply in the Brazilian market. We are also the headquarters of an important international multi-brand MRO, focused on narrow-bodies aircrafts, spotlighting SJK Airport as the best gateway to access one of Latin America's main aviation markets. Come visit us and know more about the newest Sao Paulo International Airport, SJK, the Brazil's low-cost airport. SJK Airport, cleared for takeoff.
Bien, y ahora llegamos a un esperado panel sobre los retos de la conectividad y lecciones aprendidas en la región Caribe. Invito al escenario a Peter Cerdá, vicepresidente para las Américas de IATA, quien nos acompaña como moderador, y los panelistas Philippe Bayard, CEO de Sunrise Airways, Tracy Coopers, CEO de Bahamas Air, Trevor Sattler, CEO de Intercaribbean, y Maximilian Grief, CEO de Tropic Air. Bienvenidos.
Good morning, everyone. Is everyone awake this morning? Well, I hope you are, because we're going to make this engaging. This is a spicy CEO discussion today. We're going to spice it up. It's open to all sorts of questions. We're not going to hold back on anything. So governments, if you're here, you're going to go for a pretty wild ride over the next hour. So, although Jose Botello told me I have to behave. I don't know how long. It's about the Caribbean, and we've had many panels in the past about the Caribbean and how different the Caribbean is. And I think we need to start saying that we're different. We're not different. You know, you guys compete the same way as if you were in North America or in Latin America. Your governments continue to tax you as well. Infrastructure is a challenge. Passengers want more connectivity, cheaper prices. So it's really pretty similar to discussions that we had yesterday with the other CEOs when they talk about Mexico and Brazil and Argentina. And we have one slide to show, and to show a little bit of parity in how different the region is in terms of connectivity and how we're recuperating. And you look at to from the Caribbean, and you look at the number of routes, and you look at the number of seats passengers travel, we're already exceeding 2019. We don't have the same number of flights still, the frequency, but we certainly have more destinations and more people coming to the Caribbean. And when we look at intra-regional connectivity, we've had all these forums year over year where governments are saying, well, airlines, we want you to commit more to the region. We want more flights. And one thing that's pretty clear is you are more committed to the region. You are putting more flights. You're connecting intra-regional much more than we were before. So you are committing to what the governments asked you to do. Now we'll talk about have they delivered on your expectations. We are still short in terms of seats or number of passengers and frequencies. But let's just kind of kick it off, because every airline here is very different. You're based in different parts of the region. The dynamics are different. You know, we say that it's easy to say the region, but it's very, very different from what we see in your part of the world, Philip, in a very challenging environment with a base in Haiti, with all the political and security issues. But you're still here, you're still flying, hopefully you're still making some money, and you're looking to grow. So I'm going to stop with that. Where are you today?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And Haiti is located in the center of the Caribbean. And if we start by looking back, we've been on a lockdown since 2017 for political reasons. So I think we developed a good model that mitigate risk, security as well. Then came COVID, and in the time of COVID, met with my team. So we approached COVID as a company that was started. We were confident that COVID was not going to last. So we embraced that as a new start. So we kept on developing our network internally, because limitation to fly inside. There were airport closure for international, but not local. So we kept as is. Okay, we're going to rebound whenever COVID ends. So we had few starts because if you remember, in 2020 we had a 4 start after post-COVID, and that we have a closure again 2 months later. So I think we did well, and the model we have, Haiti has the biggest diaspora in the Caribbean, and Haiti hosts some 12 to 13 million people. There have not been any recent census, but this is just an assessment. And the population needs to transact, need to travel, and we counted on that, and so that led us to be where we are today.
How difficult is it for you to run an airline amidst a political and security situation that you're living in the country, where it's quite unsafe to move around, it's challenging to make money, challenging to put people on planes? I imagine most of the folks who are flying to Haiti aboard your airplane are VFR passengers more than business. But how challenging has it been for you to continue to operate with these type of challenges that you're facing in your home market?
Well, the first challenge we had is safety, because our civil aviation, Haiti is a Cat 2 country, so we developed partnership with South Africa, a South African operator. We also developed an AOC in the Dominican Republic that helps us mitigate the safety part. So we have a hybrid system. And then in terms of security, we have an emergency response plan that accounts for various scenarios in case of problems. That works very well. And we pretty much do this in collaboration with all the authorities, immigration, customs, and the government, civil aviation authorities. And that's all I can say. I mean, it's kind of in our DNA, because Sunrise has been in existence since 11 years. I can't remember 1 year that we operated without problems. So that's...
If there's an airline that knows how to fly on the contingency, it's certainly yours, with all the issues that you've experienced. Tracy, in your case, it's all sun and margaritas in your part of the world. And I assume for next year, you'll probably have to put an A350 to fly everyone to the Bahamas for the ALTA event.
Yeah, we're going to put them all on one airplane and just keep down the carbon footprint, right? The Bahamas is not so bad in a position right now. And when we use a reference point, we use 2019, which is pre-COVID. And in 2019, our tourism product overall was around 7.2 million, it was a record year, right? And for a country of only 400,000, that's pretty good. This year in 23, we will surpass that. We'll be somewhere around 7.8. Now, most of that is cruise passengers coming in around 5 million and change. But we've been able to weather the storm from COVID. We kind of looked at places like Mexico and Dominican Republic and saw what they did to keep the tourism product going. And we kind of emulated some of that stuff, albeit a little later than they did. But so far, we have been able to weather the storm pretty good. We've been able to we've had, over the past summer, capacity problem as far as room rates. So it also affected what the airlines could do in coming into the Bahamas. The good thing about the Bahamas is that our airlift is robust. It's just not Bahamas Air. We have American, we have Delta, we have United, Southwest, whole gamut of airlines flying in. And I guess it's because of our close proximity to the United States. And so from a Bahamas standpoint, we're not complaining too much. It's not all about the margarita, but we're still not complaining.
Quick question, you talked about the cruises. I want you to be honest. Who gets more love from the government, the cruise industry or the airline business?
I think it's even. The government has bend over backwards for the cruise industry. There are a lot of several islands that you could go to, and the cruise ships could bring their people, and they wouldn't even see the full Bahamas and the culture and everything else. And obviously, there's a diminishing return when that happens. The cruise ships tend to carry most of those monies back. And so our government is now starting to have a bit of a more fight with the cruise ship industry. They're loving the airlines a lot more now.
I think, Jose, it's one of the things we need to do as trade associations and see how much does a cruise passenger leave in Nassau one day compared to a passenger that goes for a week, and we'll probably see a big difference. But that's more to come later on. So we have Max. Where are you? It's Belize, it's English, but you're in Central America, but you're kind of, everyone thinks you're somewhere else.
So, afternoon. I've received that question quite a bit over the past couple of days. Belize is essentially an enigma. We're a bit of Central America, we're a bit of the Caribbean. I see it as we're a gateway. We're the path that can go to both regions. I think that presents an opportunity, perhaps with Tracy, perhaps with some other compatriots, if you will. But Belize is a melting pot. It's really an area that represents both Central America and the Caribbean. We're the only English-speaking country in Central America. We're also the only gateway to the Caribbean from the Central American perspective. So,
do you consider yourself still a niche market?
yes, absolutely. From our perspective, our business model is based on carrying people that come into the country and then distribute them throughout the rest of the country domestically. We recognize what we do well. We've done it for almost 45 years. We're dependent on international travel coming in from the States, but we recognize that we're a boutique airline. We focus on niche markets, and it's gone well for us so far.
Is it time to bring in Europe and South America into that niche market?
Absolutely.
We'll talk more about that. Trevor, you're a bit of a troublemaker in the Caribbean. You speak your mind, you come out defending the region, but when you speak your mind, you've also delivered on what you promised. And we've, in many cases, talked with government about intra-regional connectivity, and you've stepped up to the plate. You're based in Turks and Caicos, you're putting airplanes in Barbados, you're flying more intra-regional. So you're delivering on what you promised. I'm going to start. Are the governments delivering on what they promised to you?
Good day, and thank you for having me on the panel. So let me first say Inter-Caribbean is a Turks and Caicos Island-based company. We have a grand population of about 35,000 souls who live on our islands. So we don't have this vast array of residents from which we can work to attract and build service. So it is, I'm with the company for 10 years now. The company had another name before I joined. And we, the chairman of the company had a really good vision, and he shared with me that vision, which was the point I joined with him. The fact that the Caribbean wasn't terribly well connected, and what can we do to build a connective Caribbean? The reality for people of many countries, if you didn't have a US visa, you either went to Panama if there was an option, or you just didn't go because there was no option. Or Miami, of course, it was the other way. But either way, the alternatives were 12, 14, 16 hours sometimes to get from one island to the next. So we set about building a connective network, and it was small and humble at the beginning, but we continued to expand our footprint, investing or reinvesting every dollar that came in the door back into creating this connective network, moving out, setting up a hub in the British Virgin Islands and serving simple destinations, San Juan being very close, and then off to Antigua, create connectivity out of Europe, particularly for those coming to the British Virgin Islands for sailing, and continue to move our footprint. And we were running along each year, seemed to do much better than the year before in terms of volumes, and COVID came along, and I have to say that COVID was both cruel and at the same time kind. With the advents of COVID, a company that was operating in the Eastern Caribbean basically retrenched their level of service, and governments of the Eastern Caribbean then said, come on down, and we won't give you any exclusivity, but we'll allow you to come and operate. So we built out from that beginning at the very outset of opening post-COVID, August 1, and although there was some tough moments, there was this momentary CARICOM bubble that lasted all of 2 weeks for any travel within the bubble. But we were there, we decided we're going to stick it out and essentially wait for the market to return and build on what we had. And it's been a wonderful ride since. So when folks